So I wanted to talk about my Princess Auto anvil for a minute. And is it any good? I bought this guy 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, the going rate for anvils was $1 a pound. So I've got a good anvil over here. This is a Colombian London pattern, 110 pounds. I offered the farmer $110. He said, thank you very much. So that's how I got that. Princess Auto at the time had a cast iron anvil, 75 pounds, $75. As a young blacksmith with no money, I went and got the blue cast iron anvil from Princess Auto. Started with an I-beam on the floor, and that lasted about one fire. A buddy of mine had a piece of rail, which is a little heavier, a little thicker, a little more bump behind it. And that probably lasted about one fire. Then I bought this guy, and I've never used a rail or an I-beam ever since. Iron is fairly soft. You hit it with the hammer, you leave a dent. As long as you only hit on top with red hot steel, it works fine. You start working it cold, you start trying to bend steel that's not hot enough, it's not the best. Back then, I was having 3 fires a year. It was a small little hobby, and this guy took the beating no problem. Actually got the good anvil. Still continue to use this a fair bit. I do craft sales and fall fairs. So that's where I actually have a small business called Heatwave Blacksmithing. And so I do make a little bit of money doing those things. I started taking the cast iron to fall fairs, working it a lot harder, and I was getting a lot of metal grains off the top. And I could see that it was starting to come apart. So I could probably have just ground it down, refaced it, maybe flap wheel to polish it up a bit, and it kept going. But I decided, can I put a spring steel on top? And this is actually forklift fork. Forklift goes out, big outdoor forklift, and then here it comes up and hooks to the machine. Forklift fork, I'm going to say is 4140 or something like it. I don't think it's been hardened and tempered. I think it's just got enough alloy that it's a tough steel. And so it's got a nice bounce to it. It's a good hard face on it. But how in the world do you weld cast iron to spring steel? So I checked on the internet, and everybody was saying, alright, what you do is you use nickel rod. So I went to the local weld supply store, asked for some nickel rod welding rods, and they said, here's a 10-pound pack, that would be $200. And I went, what? No. I'm fixing a $75 anvil. No. Alright, we got some no-name stuff, $150. Let me think about it. So I went back to the internet and checked how to half-ass weld cast iron. And Chucky2009 came through for me. He's an internet guy, a YouTube guy. And what he said is nickel rod is the way to go. But if you just got to get home that night, you blew a hole in your transmission casing, what you do is you take any welding rod, doesn't matter what, 6011, 7018, whatever you got kicking around, and just do small little welds and keep the heat very, very low. So when you weld, it's very hot and it wants to contract. When it contracts, it's pulling against that cast iron, which is brittle, and that's when it cracks. So what you do, you weld a small little half-inch section, and as it's contracting, you start whacking it with your chipping hammer. Up. And you start flattening it out and spreading it sideways. So it's contracting, you're spreading it back. And it sort of balances out, and you're not pulling against that cast iron the same. So I tried it, and I've been using this for probably 2-3 years at this point. Hasn't broken off yet. I don't see any cracks. The other thing that you do is you don't weld just a continuous bead. You get way too much heat. So you weld maybe a little bit there. Whack, 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 whack. Over here. Whack, 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 whack. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Maybe there. And eventually you fill in all these spots, just a small little heat, before you start coming back to where you started. Make sure you can touch it, keep the heat nice and cool. It doesn't have to be stone cold, but then you can start welding some of these together. By the time I was done, it took about half an hour. Weld just a little bit, whack, 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 whack. Probably 30 seconds. Move on to the next one, next one. This whole block at that point was pretty hot. It was hot enough that I tried to push it and it was like, oh, yeah, that's hot. Oh, we came unplugged by the way. And so it's probably a good 100 Celsius by the time I was done welding. So it had some heat for a couple of hours, and it seems to have worked. So at that point I had lost my hardy hole, which is about here, and then Bob Young said, why don't you just weld a saddle on the end? So I actually do have a hardy hole now. I can put my tools in, and it's actually got a pretty good rebound now. So it's not a bad anvil. For $75, if you're just getting into blacksmithing, I thought it was a pretty good deal. I wouldn't pay a lot for a cast iron anvil, but for when I paid 20 years ago for 75 bucks, it was quite adequate. So I've got a friend here, Dustin. He's a blacksmith down the street, and he's got a newer Princess Auto anvil, and he was going to give us a review of the newer ones. They're cast steel.
C45.
C45, which I've done a bit of research on, is like 1045. Cast iron has a lot of carbon in it, 2% carbon, which makes it quite brittle. C45, they managed to get that carbon out, but it's still poured. So I'm not sure how strong it is, and I'll turn it over to Dustin if we can do this.
So this is the Princess Auto, 110-pound anvil that you can get. Usually goes for like $329 right now, but when it goes on sale, you can get it for about $279, which is what I got mine for. Used it for about a year now. It's a little rusty right now, but there's no marks in the face from any of the times I've used it. Obviously it's double horn, has a pretty large bristle, you can get your whole finger in there, and a hardy hole as well. Don't really have any complaints about it. It is obviously a lot shorter than an English pattern anvil, like this one, but it's wider as well, so it's got a wider surface area for the same poundage. This is 110, and that's 110. I really like it for a lot of reasons. One, as many of you know, the price of old century anvils has gone way up. I used to have about a 90-pound Peter Wright anvil. When I bought it, it was $180, and when I sold it, I got $700 for it. Because prices have they're no longer $1 a pound for century anvils. It's gotten crazy, honestly. So if you're someone that wants to get into it, and you have an option of spending about $100 on a cast iron anvil, I do highly recommend that you save up for the $279 and pick one of these up. The rebound on it, you know, it's fine. I haven't deadened mine at all, so it's still got quite a ring to it when you're working on it. Yeah, it's nice to have an anvil also that's got really nice edges that you can kind of get to whatever radius you want. You don't have to worry about it coming from someone who's chipped. Hardy bowl is nice and sharp. You can file it down. You don't have to worry about it, you know, being saddlebacked or cracked or any of the weird stuff that you always have to look for whenever you go look for a century anvil. You just, out of the box, it works. Now, I have read online that some of them don't ring, or some of them have no bounce to it, or things like that. So what I did was, when I went, Princess Auto has hammers, ball peen hammers, and things like that. So you can just open the box up in the store and just tap, tap, tap around, see if you get a ring, see if you hit it, if there's a dent. But I did that, and nothing happened to mine. I really love it. And again, especially these days with the amount that the price of the century anvils has gone up. For me, you just really can't beat it for today's people trying to get into the hobby. Unless, yeah, other than that, I really have nothing negative to say about this anvil for the price. I don't think you can really beat it today.
Yeah. I just flipped over my cast iron anvil. I don't know if you can still see me here.
Yep. Yep,
So
you're just on the edge of the frame.
drop the ball bearing from here. You can see how there is very little rebound.